So I promised I would talk a bit about book formatting, and I have my laptop set up today. It is not the best setup, it's just my little webcam, and we are going to do our best to record with this using OBS. My cat has decided this is the perfect time to come in here and sit and crunch on her kitty food, so please excuse any crunching. I'm just gonna jump right into it. I have used a lot of different programs to format my books, both paperback and my ebooks. When I started, I used Microsoft Word. Eventually, I no longer had the computer that had Word, and I didn't want to buy a new license. My old license was not transferable, so I switched to OpenOffice. I used Word to format my earliest books. I think the first 3. I did manual formatting for the paperbacks, where I was even down into like the nitty-gritty stuff of going in and manually adjusting the kerning of each line to make sure that every line of the book looked good. And ultimately I found that readers did not care about that nearly as much as I did, and I figured there had to be a better way. In the earliest days of my indie publishing, I would use Word to output an HTML file, and then I would put that through Smashwords Meat Grinder, and that was always an interesting experience. After that, I moved on to using ebook formatting tools like Sigil. I used 𝗃𝗏𝘀, I have used InDesign, and eventually I decided it was time to upgrade to Vellum. Vellum is probably the most popular book formatting software, and there is very much a reason for it. I absolutely think that it is worth the money, but there are a few trade-offs on things here and there that it doesn't do perfectly. They're still updating the software and adding new features and things. Maybe they won't be problems forever. I don't think they're major problems, but they are things that bother me a little bit. I've never had anybody comment on them, so I don't know if anybody else notices, but I notice, and they are things that I would fix if I knew how to. When I made the switch to Vellum, it was actually pretty new. And even though there were a lot of people excitedly swearing by it, there was like nothing online that showed you how this program worked. There were no visual samples online, there were no tutorials, no walkthroughs, nothing. All you had was their help information that came when you bought the program, their troubleshooting on their website. That was it. So I was really going in blind, and I was so relieved that the program was easy to use. So I am going to switch over now, open it up, and give you a little walkthrough of how I use the program to format my ebooks. So here I am just opening up Vellum, and one thing that I always thought was a little bit weird was that it specifically uses docx files. And you know, Word is Microsoft, so I don't typically use that on Mac. So the fact that you need a Microsoft file on a Mac exclusive program always struck me as a little bit weird, but Pages gives you the option of exporting your documents as a docx file. So the first thing I do is always open up Pages, and I export my document as the docx file, and then I can import it into Vellum. Kind of weird, don't know why they do that. I think it might be because Word is considered like the gold standard word processor, always has been, but that's how you get around it. It's pretty easy. So I have The Witch and the Worm here. This is the fully edited manuscript, and I just select that and pick Import. So this has all of my styling that I chose for this book saved because this was the last thing that I formatted, and I'll show you some of the other choices in a second. Up here is the chapter name, and you have the option of naming all your chapters. It will put them in here. And you can see mine is set up to auto-generate a table of contents, which is really nice because that was always my least favorite part of hand coding my ebooks. You can control what this appears in. You can choose all edition, ebooks only, print only, so that's pretty handy. The top page here where it says my book, this is where you would put in your title. And this just creates like a default title page. I don't typically use the default title page. And then over here is a little tab where you can put in your ebook cover. So here I've got my cover. It's got the cover, it's got the title page. I totally have the option of exporting everything just like it is right now. So up here at the top, we've got the little styles thing. It's this little swirly here. And if I come over here, you can see Vellum uses just a whole bunch of existing templates. And these here, they have the little asterisk there. I have messed with these and customized them. It's not really the default anymore. You have the option of saving any custom changes you have made to a style, which makes it really easy to keep your ebooks consistent because you can just like pop in and grab your favorite that you've been using for that series, and that's pretty much all there is to it. I'm going to name my saved style here as The Witch and the Worm so that I can pop back to this very easily. But these are just the defaults. Kindred is the one that I used for the Snake's Blood Saga and also for Spectrum Legacy. This one was a little bit more sweet, so I thought it was a good fit for The Witch and the Worm. Each one of these styles can be customized a little bit further. If you pick this little toggle slide thing here, it lets you configure the style, and you can choose from different pre-made headers. This is like the placement for the chapter title. You can choose a background for the header, and this is also where you have the option of using like my special full page spread image that I have on my paperbacks. This is where you would set this. So here the image is already selected because I already messed with this, but you would just click on this here and then you can choose whichever image you want to be your background. You can select using white text if you have a dark background like what I have, or you can uncheck this and it would give you black text. So if you have a light gray or a white background image, you would still have the dark text. You can apply it to all chapters or just to individual elements. You can see here there's also use multiple backgrounds. You can do alternate chapter background, add in other backgrounds. So you really have a lot of control over how each individual chapter header is going to look. Here you can change the first paragraph. I've chosen a drop cap there, but there's a smaller drop cap, different font drop cap, no drop cap, capitalization, just a whole variety of things. Paragraph after break is anytime you have a chapter break. What does the section immediately following that look like? So you've got the options of like no special formatting, small caps for the whole line. You can do drop cap in different sizes, different fonts. Ornamental break, you can see this was the one that I used for The Witch and the Worm. Normally this would just be like a little blank square and then you would choose your ornamental break. I'm not sure where I have any in the preview. I'll just kind of toggle through here real fast. There we go, here's one. So I can change the size of this. I can make it really big or very tiny. This is just a pre-made transparent PNG is what I use. You can use a JPEG. I prefer PNGs with transparency just because I know consistently what they are going to look like and what they are going to print like. Here's options for header and footer, which includes like the page numbers and whatnot. And again, you have the option to create custom. You can choose the alignment, layout, and the content everywhere. You can hide it on certain parts. You can add special ornaments to the chapter information. And then in the body section, you've got your choice of fonts. You've got the option of starting your paragraphs with indentation or spacing. If you choose spacing, that's going to give you just like a line break between each. This would be good for nonfiction, but for fiction, you pretty much always use indentation. Justify text is what makes it fill the page from side to side like this so that you have a uniform squared up edge here. That gives you wider spacing in between here, so you might want to allow hyphenation. I do not use hyphenation for a very specific reason, and that is that it does not seem to understand the actual rules of hyphenation. When you hyphenate something across two lines, it is supposed to happen between syllable breaks, and it does that correctly. What it does not do correctly is that you are never supposed to hyphenate proper names. So here I've got Adeline's name here at the end. Vellum doesn't understand that this is a name and should not be broken with hyphenation across two lines. So if you've got character names and city names that are a little bit on the long side, you will have hyphenation breaking them up across different lines. That gives me bigger white space than if I choose to allow hyphenation. You can see how the word whispered here on the preview gets broken up with a hyphen there. And that's just one of those things that I cannot abide, having my city names and character names broken up with hyphenation. It's not something that happens frequently in the books, but I don't get any control over preventing certain words from hyphenating. And that's a feature that I would love to see them add. I don't know if they ever will. It might be something that doesn't really bother people, but I can't do it. And honestly, this mostly makes a difference in print books. It doesn't matter so much for like the Kindle books, because e-readers are going to hyphenate whatever they want, wherever they want, regardless of what I set for my ebook. So the only place I really run into trouble with not using automatic hyphenation is anytime that I have an ellipsis, which is, the ... between words. Very frequently, anytime I would have an ellipsis in a line of text, it would totally mess things up with my hyphenation, and I would end up having like huge white spaces in my lines, or it would really pack too many words into the line and everything would be really crowded and hard to read. So I decided to break that formatting rule instead by just including a space at the end of my ellipsis so that it would automatically break a line at the end of that. You're not really supposed to do that, but it's a choice that I made because it was closer to being correct than having names and place names broken by hyphenation. Very much a matter of opinion, matter of taste. Maybe that wouldn't bother you, but it's one of those things that bugged me, and that's just the way that I chose to address it. So just real quick here, this is how this looks in a different style. You can see this one has different header options than the previous one. And you can see that this one here, I don't have anything set for the header background. It has a few default ones that you can choose from that are pretty. Maybe you've seen these before in some books that you have read. And I appreciate that they have some basics available to you. But you might be looking at this and you're thinking, okay, but how do I add an image to the header that I want? So I'm going to pop back over here to my chapters and I'm going to show you. And I'm going to add an image by clicking on the little gear here and selecting Add Heading Image. You can add a different header image to every single chapter if you want, and I used that to my advantage when doing the Snake's Blood Saga because it let me use different icons for the different factions. So each time a different faction was like the leading POV in a chapter, I would put their icon at the start of there. So there we go, that's how we add the image, and that's pretty much what I did for The Witch and the Worm. I also added in things like a copyright page, which you would just come down here to the little gear at the bottom, you would add an element, and then you can do copyright, dedication, you can put in foreword, prologue, epilogue, all these great features. You also have the option of doing a full page image, and I use this to create a custom title page. So I'm actually going to remove this title page here, and instead I am going to use a full page image. I have a title page image here that I have made. It is the full size of the page, and I can select bleed. Now the first page of the book looks like that. But if you're conscientious about the size of your ebook, you can also choose the plain text one to be ebook only, and then the full page image one would be print book only. So this one is print only. Here you can see there's an icon for ebook only and an icon for print only. Here you can add the copyright page. This automatically goes to the top, but you can just click it and drag it anywhere you want it to be. This is their auto-generated copyright. I have a custom one that I use, but there's nothing wrong with this. Here we're going to add in a dedication. This is their default, and of course the one that I used for The Witch and the Worm was for all the girls with men like mine who years ago told me he wouldn't love me if I was a coyote. Another element I often use is the also by page. This creates auto-generated links that you can set up to go to your other books. This is specifically a store link, so I would put in the Amazon ASIN and this would create a link that goes directly to that book. But you can also select what platforms you want this to link to. And then you can put in a unique link for each of these so that if you generate one for Amazon, it's only going to create your Kindle links. If you choose that you want an Apple-specific ebook, it's going to give you links to your books on the Apple Store. Something I have done to make my life easier is create a separate also by Vellum document. This has all of my books already in it, with the exception of The Witch and the Worm because I just put that out. And if I want to use this, all I have to do is keep this updated, and then every time I publish a new book, I can just open up this file, click, drag, drop it in here in the other book, and there it is. Saves me a ton of time. At this point, I could generate this ebook. You have the option of saving it. I'm going to skip because I already have a file for The Witch and the Worm. It asks you what you want to generate for. It gives you different ebook versions here, and these are all set up to use the ideal coding for each ebook for each of these platforms, because often if you make a generic, you'll have compatibility issues. Right now, this book is Kindle exclusive, so I would just select Kindle, and then here I would pick that I also want my print file. There's a link here for print settings, and that is where you would choose the trim size. It has popular ones where you can pick more options and put in pretty much any custom size you would want. You select your page margins, you can set the size of your font, and this makes it really easy to create large print versions of your books too, because I could just grab this and slide it all the way to the right, and that would give me a large print version of the book. Here you control line spacing, and then you also have options here like how is it managing images, how is it doing page numbering. And then this one is for determining if only your first chapter starts on the right side or if every chapter begins on the right side. I like having every chapter on the right side, but if you have a particularly long book, you might be okay with having a new chapter start on the left-hand page, just because it's going to save you paper, so it's going to save you print costs. So this would be set, I would hit done and then continue, and it would generate my ebook from there. I'm not going to generate one right now because I already have one that has, you know, a few more bells and whistles that I've added in, some extra tweaks to make the ebook and the print book especially nice. So I'm not going to generate anything over the top of it, but you would just hit continue and then your books are ready to go. And that's the main reason that I switched to Vellum. With this program, I can now format an ebook in maybe like 15-20 minutes, and that's with all kinds of little extras like having my flourishes at the beginning of my chapters and stuff like that. That was just so much harder to do with other programs that I used. So I definitely feel like this program was worth the investment for me. So that's it. I feel like it's actually a little bit underwhelming when I'm showing you how it's actually done because it's so simple. But the amount of time that it saves me from manually fidgeting with things is just, it's so great. And even though it's a little bit lacking on customization options, I really feel like it has been the best program for me. Since then, there has also been the release of 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, which is a Windows-based formatting program. I tried a demo for 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and I did not like it. And the main reason that I didn't like it, aside from the fact that it was super buggy when I tried it, it was a very early demo. I do not like using things that are internet-based. I do not want formatting or writing software that requires me to be online to use it. So Atticus is like browser based, and I'm just very not cool with that. I don't even use Google Docs except for like editing. I don't do any writing in Google Docs because I do not trust them. And maybe that's a me problem, but you know, there's nothing to make you hate and mistrust modern technology like a background working with technology. And the more I learn about technology, the more I prefer analog technology. So everything should be on my solid state drive. Like, I don't even use Wi-Fi in my house, if that tells you something. Everything is hardwired. But yeah, that's all for today. If you have any questions, if you want to see anything in particular, let me know. Just drop me a comment and I will do my best to answer. Thank you for joining me again, and I'll see you next time.